Do you ever feel like your tabletop battles turn into a straight-up slugfest? Today, we're breaking the cycle. Let's talk about adding real strategy to your wargames with flanking, fog of war, realistic objectives that actually make a difference. And please like and subscribe so you won't miss out in the future. First up, we're going to talk about the strategic mindset. We need to get into the mindset of being a historical commander, not just a player. Yeah. We're not just moving our forces straight ahead. Historical commanders had many things that they were thinking about. Timing, reserves, deception, you name it, they were considering it. So how do we implement that sort of thing into the tabletop? Quite straightforward. Reserves. Historical commanders, like Napoleon, he would keep his Imperial Guard in reserve. And then when the enemy was broken, he'd be able to, or almost broken, he would release the guard and they would usually punch a hole through the enemy's ranks and win the battle. If we think of 1944, Normandy, Hitler had put the Panzer divisions in reserve, but under his personal command. Didn't quite work out too well because he was asleep when the invasion started and no one wanted to wake him. But they were in reserve. Reserves are something that militaries need to keep. Often when we fight a battle on the table, it's just a one-off. We're not too concerned about, we might as well just throw everything at it because it doesn't matter, it's a one-off. So maybe bring the strategic mindset in, and when you're playing a game, add in a rule or a victory objective that requires you to maintain a certain percentage of your forces. Because if you win but your force is destroyed, it's a Pyrrhic victory. And then we've got deception. Historically, commanders can only see what they can see. If you've got a hill, they don't know what's behind it. If there's a woods, who knows who's in there? How can we replicate that on the table? A very simple, easy method is to use blinds. So if you choose at the start of the game 6 units to be concealed, let's just say, then take 10 or even 12 markers, blinds. That way your opponent knows you've got some troops somewhere, but who knows if it's those markers that are moving to the right or those markers that are moving to the left. It just gives you that bit of deception and can really add a real interest to the game, because if they head out after one group of markers, they could be leaving their flank exposed to the real attack, which is coming from their left. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about flanking. So why flanking works. Historically, why it would work, what it actually did. When you flank your enemy, you often had the element of surprise, because they were fixated on what was to their front, if they were sort of locked in combat, or perhaps you're flanking them and you're coming through the woods or whatnot and they weren't expecting it. So it has that real morale pressure put onto them. All of a sudden what they thought was secure is no longer secure. The flank again is not usually defended well. If you've got let's just use the image of a phalanx. The spear tips or the sarissa tips are forwards, and there's not much protection on the left or the right hand side. So if someone comes in to those flanks, you're in a lot of trouble. So it can easily break the cohesion and exploit weak spots. How do we add flanking into our games? When you've got that traditional slugfest where there's no maneuver, no room, we can't. So we need to zoom out and either increase the battlefield or reduce the number of figures on the table. Both are options. You could even reduce from, say, 28mm down to 6mm. Many different options. Or if you're using 28mm, instead of having a regiment which is represented by, 20 figures, reduce it down to 10 figures. There's different options, but gain that space on the table so that you can actually have flanking maneuvers and use actual tactics. Next up, we've already touched on slightly, but fog of war. Many games are too open. Everyone sees everything. So if you add those markers, as we said before, that's going to give you the option to hide things and create dummy plans. Also, fog of war means that you don't necessarily know exactly what the enemy is going to do at any one time. So, reinforcements. Sometimes they are kind of left out of games, or they're very simple. Whereas if you are really trying to be strategic and very tactical, do you want your reinforcements to arrive straight behind you, just to come up and secure your the back? Not necessarily, maybe, but not necessarily. Or would it be more advantageous for your cavalry to flank round and come in onto the enemy's weak flank, or even come all the way around and envelop them so that they can't escape? So Fog of War can be implemented onto the tables by using blinds, but also good reinforcement systems. And now we get to objectives. I'd say in most battles, whilst you're trying to break the enemy's will to fight, it's not always about just destroying every man. There are objectives such as take this hill, take this building, take this village, which are more important at the tactical level rather than the destroy the army, which is more at the strategic level. However, too many war games, in my opinion, have objectives, but it's always, let's just put these 3 markers evenly spaced along the centre, or they've got to be 10 centimetres from each side. They're just boring, plain, they've got no relevance to the game whatsoever. Historically, when we look at, think of Pegasus Bridge, like D-Day, the airborne forces were dropped to secure key locations. They had to capture this bridge, they had to capture this village, they had to capture whatever it was, strategically important to slow down the enemy's advance. Even if you think of, say, the Battle of Waterloo, an objective. We've got to take La Haye-Sainte, we've got to take Hougoumont. There's strategic points within the battlefield that had to be taken. It wasn't just, oh, we've got to take this ambiguous centre point which really has no strategic importance. So how can you implement them? Before you start the game, make up some, once you've laid all the scenery out and you've decided which side you're going to start on or you're going to deploy, actually think of realistic objectives. Why would you want to take such and such? Why would you want to do this? If you're the defender, your objective could just be hold for X number of turns. Perhaps you've got reinforcements coming up. Who knows? But yeah, hold for 8 turns. If you're the enemy, yes, your primary objective is to break the enemy's will to fight, break their army. But it could be, oh, there's some high ground there, we need to occupy that by turn 3. That way we can move our artillery up and then enfilade their lines. It could be, oh, there's a strong point there, that farmhouse, which they're using to break our attacks. We've got to take that first, and then the centre will be open for us to punch through. Look at your table once you've laid it out, and figure out what would be a decent, realistic objective, and give yourself time periods, turns, to achieve your objectives within. This is going to add narrative depth and make every scenario or battle feel different, because it's not always the same punch up just for this random point and this random point and this random point. So as a recap, strategy, flanking, fog of war, objectives. Next time you play, don't just roll dice and charge. Outsmart, outmaneuver, and outthink your opponent. That's what makes a war game truly come alive. Share your favourite house rules for Fog of War or objectives in the comments. I'd love to try them out. Till next time, guys, keep gaming and have fun. Thanks.